Now, it's a story about the complexities of a modern-day marriage. Jeffrey Brown talks to Meg Wolitzer, the author of more than a dozen novels, including The Wife, this month's pick for Now Read This. That's the NewsHour and the New York Times Book Club. The book was the inspiration for the recent film of the same name, which earned Glenn Close an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. The conversation is tonight's edition of our Arts and Culture series, Canvas.
May I also say congratulations to you as well, Joan? I don't think people give the spouse enough credit.
I give my wife credit. I give her plenty of credit.
In The Wife, both film and novel, Joan Castleman accompanies her famous writer husband Joe as he prepares to accept a major literary prize. The story takes us through decades of their marriage and into some surprising behind-the-scenes secrets to his success. Author Meg Wolitzer joins me now to answer questions from our readers. Welcome back to you.
Happy to be here.
So first tell us, especially for those who are not in the book club, not our readers, what were you after here?
Well, I was interested in the different ways that the world has treated men and women, and I wanted to look at that in the context of a marriage.
Okay, so let's go to some of our questions. Let's
Sure.
look at the first one.
Where did you get your research and ideas for writing your book, The Wife?
The story really came from the imagination. I mean, I love the invention side of writing.
Yeah.
That said, I am a writer and I live in the world. I'm also the daughter of a writer. And my mother is a novelist, Hilma Wolitzer, and she's 89. And this wasn't her experience at all. I want to say that up top.
Yeah.
However, when she had her first novel published, there was a review that said something like, housewife turns into novelist, and she has made the joke that it was as if she was Clark Kent going into a phone booth and sort of turning into a superhero. And there was a kind of condescension in that headline, and I was interested in that.
Okay, so let's go to our next question because it goes to that time period.
Sure.
Why did you choose the 50s for Joe and Joan to marry?
I was interested in it having read Sylvia Plath and her letters from Smith and her journals. I sort of felt that I had a sense of what it was like to be a young woman then, at least to some degree I had it from other things that I'd read, and wanted to sort of give it my own pass. But beyond that, everything, if you said it in the 50s, everything that you're trying to say can be almost set into relief. It's really happening in a big way, that kind of condescension toward a woman who is trying to write.
You know, one of the things that I saw in the Facebook discussion was a question about, you know, the difference between a film and a novel.
Yeah.
In the novel, it's narrated by the wife, right?
Right.
First person.
Right.
The film,
Yeah.
we're seeing Glenn Close.
I know, it's so different. It was the first book that I think I wrote in first person in a voice like this, and it's a sort of strong, angry, funny voice. So when you have an adaptation made, you know, you kind of, I at least say to the filmmaker, sort of, you know, go do your thing. And they really did a different kind of thing while being faithful to the book. Glenn Close, who's such a wonderful, brilliant actress, I think, so much of what she does, you just are watching it, whereas I'm saying it.
Okay, let's go to our next question.
What research, if any, substantiates the idea that The Wife would not have been able to have been published on her own in the 1950s due to her gender?
I don't know that everyone would agree that she, you know, couldn't have been able to be published. You can see the difference in the ways male writers and female writers are talked about. Women did publish, of course, but they were treated differently. The big, important ones, for the most part, were men. I mean, and that was the way it was.
You mentioned your mother being a writer, so that goes to our next question.
Sure.
Let's look at that.
Glenn Close spoke eloquently at the Golden Globes about The Wife and how it related to her own mother's life. What would your mom say about the book and the response to it?
I'm thinking of my mom, who really sublimated herself to my father her whole life.
My mother has only been supportive of me since I was young, and she didn't have that same kind of support from her parents. She grew up in a different era, and I grew up when I did. And in fact, I used something in a novel of mine that had happened in real life. I gave a reading somewhere, and during the Q&A, a woman stood up and said, "My daughter wants to be a playwright. What should I tell her? I know how hard it is." And I said, "Is she talented?" And the woman said, "Yes, very." And I said, "Is she burning to do it?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I think you should tell her that's wonderful. The world will whittle your daughter down, but a mother never should." My mother never did, and that's really, I think, why I wrote this book and, all my books.
All right, congratulations on novel and film being made from it.
Thank you.
So we'll have more questions and continue our conversation online. For now, Meg Wolitzer, thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And let me announce our March book pick. We're turning to a genre we haven't tackled yet, science fiction, and to a novel that tackles very of-the-moment gender politics in which young women have special powers. It's called The Power by British writer Naomi Alderman. We hope you'll join us and others in reading and discussing the book on our Facebook page for Now Read This, our book club partnership with the New York Times.